Coming up on Smart Tech today, Matthew Cassinelli and I start with an important announcement, so you're definitely going to want to tune into this episode. Before we look at the trends of the year, or maybe even a couple of years, we look forward to the future of the smart home and related smart tech, and we share with you our favorite smart home products that we use to this day. So stay tuned for this very, very special episode of Smart Tech Today.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Join more than 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/STT. And by userway.org. Userway ensures your website is accessible, ADA compliant, and helps your business avoid accessibility-related lawsuits. The perfect way to showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. It's not only the right thing to do, it's also the law. Go to userway.org/twit for 30% off Userway's AI-powered accessibility solution. Hello and welcome to Smart Tech Today, the show where we explain the exciting, dynamic, and sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. I am Mikah Sargent.
And I am Matthew Cassinelli. Hello, Micah. How's it going?
It is going well, Matthew. It is going mostly well. We have a special announcement to make today. And what I'm trying to do is make sure that in making this special announcement, we don't sort of tell people that they should put the show into recycle mode and send it in for a rebate and then make their, brick their devices, that we don't release an internet connected hub that lets you control multiple smart home devices and then add a subscription service later. Oh,
wait, we do have that.
We do have a subscription service. Oh no. Folks, I want to start by saying that doing this show, Smart Tech Today, this concept has been something that has been a concept of mine for quite some time. I can remember getting my first, internet-connected light bulb and seeing the magic of that and realizing what it meant to start to automate my home. And I remember pitching to different folks, this is way back before I worked for TWiT, the idea of a smart tech show. And at the time, the folks said, still a little bit too niche. Some of you will say niche. I say niche. Either way is fine. Anyway, and I said, okay, I get you. I understand. It's not, sort of front of mind. And gave it some time, ended up working at TWiT. And I pitched the show idea again and said, I know this great guy, Matthew Cassinelli. And he knows a thing or two about automation, and through that would be able to talk about smart tech with me, and showed him to folks at TWiT via his YouTube videos. And the show was greenlit. Smart Tech Today, the show, first as an audio podcast, then as both an audio and video podcast. And it was our opportunity to come together and talk about all kinds of smart technology, whether it be internet-connected bulbs or robots or cars that drive themselves or restaurants that can serve you without an actual human being or DNA-based storage devices, all sorts of, there's so much out there. But the kind of basis of the show, the IoT part of the show, which served as the largest kind of chunk of the show, is still at this point a rather niche topic. There are more people than ever who are aware of it, but not necessarily more people who are enthusiastic about it on the regular. And in fact, I just reported on this today. You may have seen this article, Matthew. Amazon's ALEXA stalled with users as interest faded, documents show. There's this new report in Bloomberg Business Week about how people get their Echo device, they use it for a week, and then they stop using it.
Totally.
Because
Makes
they,
sense.
yeah, right. They see what it can do, and then they're like, okay, that's cool. And then a lot of them don't use it. The people who do continue to use it basically use it for the same exact things over and over again, setting timers, that kind of thing. So all that's to say, maybe after Matter and after the smart home is kind of a built-in thing where builders are more working on it, then it will be a more forefront part of the mind and interweaved with the culture. But it is not right now, and that makes it very difficult to do a show that is covering all things smart tech. And so all that's to say, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Even just in terms of, I'm always interested in this stuff, but I think just in terms of timeliness, while there's always new stories, it's not urgent to stay up with it on a daily basis and things like that. It's been very interesting seeing how the stuff has changed also. But here, I'll let you continue before we.
I was just going to say, trends. You and I definitely, I know, will continue to watch all of this stuff and pay attention to this stuff because we individually are enthusiasts with it. But this is the final episode of Smart Tech Today. This is our 109th episode. So we've been going for more than 2 years in terms of definitely more than 2 years, but 52 weeks, 52 episodes a year. We've been going longer than that. And it has been my immense pleasure bringing this show to you folks every week and discussing this stuff with you, Matthew. And I know I had a lot of fun on Thursdays. This show, more than any of the other shows I do for TWiT, I feel comfortable kind of hanging out a little bit and getting to chat about different stuff that is in many ways related to tech, but not always super smart techie. And that has, I think, produced some really good content in the end that I'm proud of. And so the moments with quote unquote asterisk Dr. Mikah and totally. Our pumpkin pie chat and all that kind of stuff has been good fun.
I laughed 10 seconds ago when you said niche or niche, and I just was like, that's another one of those that's like we could totally have a discussion about.
Yes,
I agree. I think talking with you has been by far the best part because I do want to know what you think about this stuff as much as what is happening in this world, because I do think that just listening to you before and now being able to talk with you every week is just what enables me to contextualize it in that human way and the real part, not just industry news. And it's like how this stuff matters for how you live your life. And so much of it is at home too. And so I think sleeping, if the goal is of smart tech is to make your life better, I think those life advice things around it fit in perfectly. Like me sleeping on my left side almost, I think about that every single night. And that is probably helps me better than sleep tracking and stuff like that. So some of those details are just about better living aided with technology or thought technology. Maybe.
Some people just grow.
We've also
that's
done
okay.
good at stretching some jokes. Early in the show, there was some.
There've been very awkward moments.
I remember, but that's the best part.
Cringeworthy moments and lots of laughter and lots of good times and occasionally getting to help people solve the problems that they had. And you will see this continued conversation in this. I'm not going to stop talking about IoT and smart technology just because I don't have a show about it. And I encourage you, if you do have, your questions and stuff, that you can still email and ask about them, and they can occasionally pop up in other places. But as far as the show goes, this is what we're sunsetting, as it were, which is the term we have to use because that's what every IoT person or IoT company says about the products that they're getting rid of. But we thought we would talk kind of about some themes, ask each other some questions, and really kind of dig in here with the whole of the show, what we've talked about on the show, but also what trends we've seen over time, what we expect for the future, etc. And Matthew, you did something pretty amazing you want to tell everybody about.
In my classic style, I've wanted to do this the whole time that we've done this show, but it was hard to get the shortcuts together. But I just figured out how to basically scrape the show notes links for every episode that we've done. I only did the last 50 so far just because it took a while, but I basically went through the TWiT website and grabbed all of the URLs for each of the stories that we covered and put them into an Airtable database. And I was starting to go through and categorize them and just see tagging them on just like a granular level, but also some of those trends that, especially at the beginning, I never thought about these trends before. And then as the show went on, it slowly developed that, we're seeing changes in smart displays becoming more prevalent and things like that. So I actually have in the show notes a link to the Airtable that anybody can check out. There's two, one that just goes to every single story. So sometimes my shortcut wasn't working. So there's a couple that Pics of the week that maybe didn't make it in or things like that. But I'm going to finish categorizing it all because I am just super interested. And then I kind of took each of those stories and made a topic for if this was about the assistants getting smarter, that was kind of categorized. And so there's a second base that's the most used topics and ones that we've talked about. And so I basically just ran out of time because there is a ton of information in here.
There's so much, yeah.
Even just going through this alone, I think the last 30 episodes, there was 50 different topics and some that are actually very interesting trends, which alone just at a macro level kind of made me think about how just diverse this space really is. And I think while that's gives us plenty to talk about, I think that is one of the hard things about smart home is it means something to everybody. It means something different to every person. And so you could be really into one area and then you just don't care at all about Siri or something like that.
See, that's so true because for some people, the smart home is I saw at the store these LED light strips that connect to my my router and I can put them up and turn them on and off using my phone. For some people, the smart home is I walk into my house and the blinds go up if it's daytime and the robot vacuum stops running because I'm home and about to watch a movie and my heated sofa starts warming up as it gets time, and then the popcorn popper and they have so many automations in place that make the smart home work for them. Totally. But for some people, you say smart home and they're just those bulbs that turn on and off, or that plug I can plug in that will let me talk to my Echo and tell it to turn on or off. Or I say Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays or Happy Hanukkah or whatever it happens to be to my virtual assistant, and then it does these things in my home. It does mean so many things to so many different people, and so there's been so much news to cover as different companies make different products, and I'm not surprised that's the case. The one bummer, of course, the show going away in the first place is a bummer, but the one other bummer to the show going away at the time that it's going away, this of course made the most sense, but going away at the time that it's going away is that it's right before CES, which may or may not be happening in person, but we're going to see a lot of smart devices. I currently have a couple of embargoes that obviously I can't talk about that have to do with smart tech stuff that, we can't cover. It's just there's always new stuff coming out. And as you said, it just means so many different things to so many different people.
Yeah. I think even just coming, that's a good part to start off with too, though, as one of the first trends is just the delay of matter. I think was one of the things that first just at all, the introduction of PChoip, which was hilarious. And then Project Chip, and then that turning into Matter was this huge, that started fairly recently into the beginning of the show, and we were super excited about that. But I think, I mean, as with everything, COVID pushed a lot of stuff back. So I mean, particularly CES, I'm curious how to see the trend of how smart home companies fared without Matter and with COVID in the way. Like, they're kind of stuck in this middle zone. So
yeah, and their plans.
That'd be interesting to see.
The internals of these devices, are they already ready to be Matter enabled, but we just have to wait for that to happen? Like, because that's what Eve has done a good job. We talked about this last week, has done a good job of making sure that its products were ready to roll when first Thread and then now Matter is ready to roll. And we've got a lot of companies saying, hey, we're going to be part of the Matter train, choo-choo. But does that mean that the devices that they have right now, or the ones that they're announcing, will have that support and they just have to keep hush-hush about it because it's not ready yet? Or is it going to be that you will end up buying new stuff afterwards? So yeah, that's a really interesting thing going forward that we have to pay attention to. I'm honestly just kind of excited to see in the new year when we start to see shelves, well, I guess virtual shelves for me, when I go to Amazon and one of the things that's listed on the image of this product is a thing that says, Matter enabled or supported by Matter, or whatever it is that they choose to go with there. That's going to be really exciting to see. And then I'm looking forward to as well, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, is WWDC, Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, this coming summer, because we got a lot of chatter about it. We get a lot of chatter about Matter at the last WWDC. So now that it's going to be out, this will officially be the time to take a look. Now, we've got so much to cover and a lot to talk about, but I do want to take a quick break here really quick. I'll let you all process the fact that we are saying goodbye. This is the last episode. And while you're processing, we'll take a quick break. This episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by BetterHelp Online Therapy. You can check them out at betterhelp.com/STT. It can be kind of difficult sort of summarizing therapy or if you've never done it before, kind of what is the point of therapy? And so a way to understand the point of therapy, why it matters, is to think of it through kind of some analogies. We get our cars tuned up to prevent bigger issues down the road. We get annual checkups and go to the gym to maintain physical wellness and prevent injury and disease. And we do chores regularly, some of us, to avoid a giant mess of a house and roaches. Going to therapy, it's like all of these things. It's routine maintenance, but it's just for your mental and emotional wellness to prevent bigger issues down the road. Therapy, it doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. It means you're investing in yourself to keep your mind healthy. BetterHelp isn't just any online therapy. It's customized for you by offering phone, video, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So why invest everything else and not your mind? This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Smart Tech Today listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/STT. That's BETTERHELP.com/STT. Thank you so much to BetterHelp for sponsoring this week's episode of Smart Tech Today. All right, back to the show, our final show of ever. I almost said of the year. No, our final show. And yeah, so what we were kind of talking about right before the break is what we're looking forward to seeing going forward, kind of trends going forward. And I have a feeling, Matthew, that you were pretty bullish on people using their voice as a method of communicating, that vocal computing is the future.
I wasn't necessarily going to say that. I do think smarter assistants in general is kind of that realm. I do think voice in general has a very specific use, and I think there can be more of that going forward, but I don't necessarily think like I think that going back to that Bloomberg story of people not being as excited about Amazon's assistant is just, there was a huge trend of like, we're only going to talk to our computers and just sit here and it's going to be voice only. And I don't necessarily believe in voice only in that realm. I do think, though, things like even just thinking about going into virtual reality and stuff like that, you're probably going to be using your voice to do things because you just don't want to sit there and poke around with your hands and things like that. So there are some of those bigger trends. I do think there's a lot more that could be done with voice, like even just how people don't necessarily use a lot of skills, and Amazon's changes in how they're developing those and releasing them and just making it easier to trigger and understand which ones should be used. I think that could go a long way, and seems like it was a little slow to be developed. That, like, it makes sense that people aren't using the echoes as much as they would have thought. But at the same time, yeah, obviously on the shortcut side, I think the whole side of Siri has that whole untapped potential that Apple has completely fumbled the bag for most of the time this whole way. But I can see how with shortcuts, I can set up custom shortcuts that ask me questions and do this whole interactive experience. And so making that accessible for people is going to be a lot more important. But I think there's a lot of the stages for that. So some of the voice stuff I do think is going to be, I think it's just like when it first came out, it was like, oh my gosh, we're all going to be using our voice. And then in a couple of years, we are all going to be using our voice, and it's totally normal. And it's not like a game changer in terms of a computing paradigm that you'll lose everything else, kind of like the iPhone and that sort of way. But I think in terms of the smart home, like, I don't almost ever use my smart home stuff if not for my voice. So I know that you're obviously the complete opposite realm. So maybe that's why it seems like I'm super bullish on voice, just because you aren't.
That's probably what it is, because you actually use it versus me who doesn't. What's interesting is what Amazon kind of sees internally as the reason. So the Bloomberg Businessweek article, which is in the show notes, Burke, if you do want to show that one. This Bloomberg Businessweek article was based on some internal memos that the company, or that Bloomberg Businessweek saw. So they're reporting on some internal memos that have kind of details that said that 15 to 25% of new ALEXA users were no longer active in their second week with the device. So even in the second week, they're already kind of not using it. Amazon's internal people said that they thought one of the reasons for this is that most people kind of discover the features that they plan to use within, sort of moments of using it, within at least the first week. And so they stick with those, the music, the setting timers in the kitchen, that kind of thing. And that they don't know about all the new features that Amazon is adding because they're not paying attention to that. And they think that the device is just kind of for what it's for. But the other thing that Amazon saw internally was that its problem with privacy has really become this thing that people know about and cite. And so even though, now they've got all this branding about this was built to protect your privacy, people aren't necessarily believing that, or they're not sticking to that. They're not believing that what Amazon is saying is true in those cases. And so Amazon's struggling with overcoming that. I thought another interesting statistic from this is that it says in 2018, Amazon projected it would lose $5 per device in 2021. So at that time, because these devices have been money losers for a long time, in 2018, Amazon said, look, we're going to be losing $5 per device in 2021. But by 2028, we want to be making $2 per unit profit. So they were hoping that 2028 comes around, they'll finally be making money on these things, and that this is kind of a long play. But they've got all of these hurdles to overcome. And that discovery issue is a big one, but it's also just kind of like the base helpfulness that these devices have. They're already, good, not great, but good for people who aren't discerning about music. They're already good music players. Kids can quickly understand how that part works, so they get to listen to music and play music on it. And they're great kitchen timers. And so if you've got those things figured out, then people aren't kind of looking to them for the other features that they add in many ways. And that means that the money-making features that Amazon has are not really being used. I'm curious, Matthew, have you ever used, because I've done this once and I'll describe it, but I'm curious if you've ever used any of your voice assistants skills to order something, in particular ALEXA. Have you ever used ALEXA to order something?
That's like the only reason I own that product. I actually honestly, I think this is one of those things that I'm curious too. This was what I was thinking of, just the trend of the pandemic is like, I think at one point my Echo got unplugged and I've never bothered to plug it back in because it's like, that's on the lowest list of a huge list of priorities that I have. And so I was kind of doing this stuff more before, but then it just kind of is like, I don't care. Or it's like, the whole part about the frustration with some of these, it gets really frustrating when you're in the house all the time and your assistant thing is yelling back at you or it's beeping and you're just like, please just stop. Like, I don't need all this stuff. So I do think though, like the ordering thing was, I mean, honestly.
So what have you ordered?
I ordered espresso and then I did subscribe and save after that. So like, that's the weird part is like, if you were going to do something regularly with your voice, they have another feature that obviates the need for it. So like, it is like, it could be nice, or like the times that I think when we run out of paper towels or whatever, I could add it there. But even then we usually get those on like pretty specific intervals, or like I try to bulk order. I don't order things immediately. I mean, I guess I can add it to your cart, but I do think the same thing about just like you figure out what you want to use it for. And then there's not much beyond that. I think I had it, one of the top topics is smarter assistants that I found through these stories. And there actually have been an incredible amount of features added to the smart assistants since the beginning of the pandemic that I totally agree. I don't know why a single person would know about them unless they listened to this podcast or read those articles specifically.
Yes.
And it was a lot of stuff too that I thought, I remember saying multiple times, this wasn't already a feature. This felt like it should have been a feature. And I feel like just that impression of what the smart home is stuck 3 to 5 years ago and justifiably so. I think I was thinking of this metaphor of if you start from neutral, we've gotten a lot of additives over the last few years, but they haven't taken away all of the negatives. All that matter stuff, I think, is the biggest thing that is blocking the smart home from those features on top of it expanding and going beyond, both just in terms of speed, reliability, frustrations going away, and then just enabling new features like casting and sharing messages and things like that we saw last week, and just doing it in an instant too. So like, and it's just during the pandemic and everything like that, like why the conversation mode thing, it's like these companies are still doing all this stuff, but we aren't just having those context shifts as much. I mean, everybody has a different experience with it, but I do think just coming home after a long day at work and ordering and having the thing order the groceries or whatever, just like gives you an opportunity to use your home in a different way, where I know that I listen to a lot less music in the house just because it's putting noise throughout the whole house, and it is like just our spaces are being used differently right now. And so this was a really long answer from the the Bloomberg article prompt, but I think it's all obviously meshed together.
That's a really good answer. I too have I was just talking about this earlier, actually, use my devices like I used to, where they would play music regularly throughout the home because I live attached to other people. And then also, there are days when my partner is working from home now, and obviously we're not going to all be playing music whenever the other person needs to be doing other things. So that all has an impact. I'm curious. I forgot I was going to mention the one time I used that option to do a voice order was back whenever they kind of incentivized it during a Prime Day. And so there was this dog toy, and they said if you order it with AliExa, then you'll get like 50% off of what was already a discounted rate. So I was like, obviously, heck yeah, that's going to make like $3. So I, burr, and it came. I did sound like Blue's Clues, yes. And it came, and it was larger than my dog was because, as Jason pointed out during Tech News Weekly when I was talking about this, I didn't have it on my phone to look at and to scroll through the photos to see how big it was or anything like that. I was just using my voice to order it, so it came as huge. He ended up liking it, so it was fine. But still, it was just this kind of silly moment. But I'm curious what you feel are the biggest barriers right now for the average person to get into the automation side of smart tech stuff. So we've got, there are everyday people now who are getting a bulb or a plug or something like that. But tell me what you think is kind of keeping people from getting into accessing the superpowers of the smart home.
I think in the simplest, my first thought for at least the shortcuts world is that you literally cannot share them. So that'll do it. Is that you can't share the shortcuts that are built into the personal automations feature. And so in order to set up a personal automation, even just to tell someone how to do it, I have to have I think there's like a 13-step checklist that's like open shortcuts, go to the automations tab, add a personal automation, find the type of automation, change the setting, then do another type of setting, and then add your shortcuts, and then run it. And so it's like just being able to get someone to get to the very beginning part to test it is probably too confusing alone. And I think in terms of like skills or things like that, those are already shareable, but there is not that kind of physical way to interact with it in a large space. I think also like Google hasn't really emphasized it a lot. Their automations have always seemed like either it was very well put together or just doesn't exist. And those things slowly got added, I think, over the last 2 years too. Just kind of some what you thought would be other features. But I think it has kind of been fairly patchwork, or there's if this then that and Zapier things, but those are all super web-based and tying like a smart home thing that you're controlling on your phone with a web service. Just like, I don't even know what computers I should use to set that up. Like, what's the best method? So I think a lot of that just isn't super approachable or accessible to the average person. And just like knowing what you should do, or the problem of you don't want it automated. You want it automated 90% of the time, but that 10% of the time you really don't. And so it ruins it. And so I think that's where like something like shortcuts can kind of fill in a gap where I can have a shortcut that just turns on the lights that I want, and I don't need to use my voice every single time or try to automate it when I walk into the room based off of the motion sensor thing. But, I'm recording my podcast and I put the thing in front of the motion sensor so it thinks I'm not here anymore and stuff like that. I think it's close. I mean, I just to like, I'm hearing some other trends too I was thinking about smart displays as a way to bring the assistants into something that you can actually physically interact with, because that's been a big trend. And then I also just think the motion sensing thing that's actually in a lot of smart tech things, which I'm going to say there's going to be a privacy reckoning around that. I can already tell, because who knows that the new Echoes can tell that you're in the room, or the Nest Hub knows that you're in the room. I don't think anybody really understands that. And just while you can do that in a cool way, and I absolutely want it basically from Apple and not from those guys, but
right.
I think doing it I think the fact that it's just kind of already here and nobody really knows about it is going to be weird. Whereas what you actually want from the smart home is like, I just walk into the room, the lights turn on. So those 2 points are going to have to meet. And I think that's what Apple is good at, is like making it not creepy, but all these other companies are just kind of doing it. And like the Nest Hub can watch you while you're sleeping sort of thing. Just that those realms in terms of automation are where like the biggest opportunities lie, and the gulf between where we are and where we want to get is pretty big and will take time. But I think it's admittedly on the way. I think that's something that has happened in the last 3 years of the 2 or so years of a smart home is companies moved beyond smart speakers, and that part in the home and just basic home stuff is already there. I think a big trend is that it's gotten cheaper, and that's awesome. Like I never expected when we started the show that we would have have to not talk about HomeKit as much because there's too many stories about HomeKit. Whereas Google and Amazon there barely is any news a lot of times because most smart stuff works with it, but there's nothing specific to them. Whereas a lot of HomeKit stuff has come out and gotten cheaper. But I do think just a lot of that base layer of stuff has gotten covered. And so companies have moved beyond into healthcare trends and things like that, or like the family monitoring stuff that is super powerful too. So it's wild. Like, that's why, I mean, you can tell that we're jumping all over the place, but that's because, I mean, cloud gaming has come in, like, there's all this new type of monitoring in the home too, with like sound recognition stuff. That stuff is very cool. I feel like
very cool.
That's why I enjoy doing this kind of episode, because we talk about so many cool new things each week, but it's hard to recognize that in the last 2 years, these things are becoming commonplace, or like the desk setup innovation in webcams is really strong now, and that wasn't around at all before. So I don't know. I'm kind of just jumping across topics now. What do you?
Well, so we're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to give you my answer for why I think, or what I think is kind of the barrier to adoption of automation for the average person. So we will talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about UserWay, who are bringing you this episode of Smart Tech Today. It's userway.org. Look, UserWay, I love the idea here. I love what they are aiming to do. They are trying to make the web more accessible. Every website, without exception, needs to be accessible. Why? Well, because every website is a public entity, but also it's just because it's the right thing to do. UserWay has an incredible AI-powered solution that tirelessly enforces the hundreds of WCAG guidelines. With just one line of JavaScript, UserWay can achieve more than an entire team of developers. Making your website accessible can be overwhelming, but UserWay's solution makes it simple, easy, and it's cost-effective. Check out their free scanning tool to see if your website is ADA compliant. UserWay's AI and machine learning solutions power accessibility for more than 1 million websites. It's trusted by such folks as Coca-Cola, heard of them? Disney, eBay, FedEx, and many other leading brands. And now UserWay is making those best-in-class enterprise-level accessibility tools available to small and medium businesses. Operating an accessible and compliant website isn't only the right thing to do, it also makes business sense. Millions of people will require UserWay just to purchase your products, and when you need to scale, well, you need UserWay. For years, UserWay has been on the cutting edge, creating innovative accessibility technologies that push the envelope of what's possible with AI, machine learning, and computer vision. UserWay's AI automatically fixes violations at the code level, and if you're curious, here are some of the things that UserWay does. It auto-generates image alts, so it'll actually write those image descriptions for you. It remediates complex nav menus, which are often an Achilles heel for companies, and UserWay ensures that all pop-ups are accessible. It fixes vague link violations and also fixes any broken links. It ensures your website makes use of accessible colors while remaining true to your brand. And UserWay gives you a detailed report of all the violations that were fixed on your website. UserWay is platform agnostic, so whether you're using WordPress, Shopify, or Wix, you can easily add UserWay, and the same goes for AEM, Sitecore, or SharePoint. UserWay integrates seamlessly with all. Let UserWay help your business meet its compliance goals and improve the experience for your users. And if you're not hearing it from me, then maybe the original voice of Siri, Susan Bennett, of course, Siri is considered to be the world's most popular voice assistant, has a message about UserWay.
Hi, I'm Susan Bennett, the original voice of Siri. You won't hear me say something like this too often. I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're looking for. But every day, that's what the internet is like for millions of people with disabilities. UserWay fixes all of that with just one line of code.
One line of code. UserWay can make any website fully accessible and ADA compliant. With UserWay, everyone who visits your site can browse seamlessly and customize it to fit their needs. It's also a perfect way to showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. Go to userway.org/twit and get 30% off UserWay's AI-powered accessibility solution. UserWay, making the internet accessible for everyone. Visit userway.org/twit today. And of course, thank you so much to UserWay for sponsoring this week's episode of Smart Tech Today. So before the break, I asked Matthew what he felt was kind of the thing that is holding back the average person from using the automation part of the smart home. There are a lot of people who have a bulb or a plug or something like that, but who actually are using those automation features that are supposed to kind of take the smart home to the next level. This is a really interesting question. That sounds like I'm tooting my own horn here, but I have been thinking a lot about this, and I think that it's kind of wild because those of us so this kind of thing is my day job. Day in, day out, I am, reading about this kind of thing and talking about this kind of thing. And even I find it exhausting to set up a bunch of automations for making my smart home work how I want it to. Matthew, you have an easier go of things because it's even more of your day job to work in automations. Rosemary Orchard,
but still.
It even still, like, it can be kind of an exhausting thing. So then I think about, Lisa, the truck driver, who comes home and she just had this really long day or days on the road, and she comes home and then she's supposed to figure out how to make her ALEXA device like listen to the security alarm going off or the fire alarm going off and send her notifications. Like, people have things to do, Jeff. And so it's hard. That was Jeff Bezos. I know that he's now not really in charge. But anyway, my point is there's a lot going on for the average person. And so what I think it takes is, and this is going to kind of ruffle some feathers, I think, because those of us who pay more attention to this thing oftentimes don't want this, which is, I think it's going to take better AI. I think it's going to take the closest thing that I've seen for this is Hunches from Amazon. Hunches is this system where it starts to pay attention to how you use your home that just so happens to be connected to the internet, and then gives you kind of trends and themes. And so it says, I noticed that every Tuesday, Lisa, when you come home from being out on the road for 6 weeks, you close the garage door, you lock the door, you come into the house and you turn on these lights, and you start your foot bath. And I can make all of those things happen automatically. That on its own is a really cool thing because that takes the work out of the person's hands. But it has to go further than that, because that is fine and dandy for the average user, but the sort of enthusiast and power user likes those features, but then also doesn't want to relinquish control because of those times when it doesn't work how you're expecting it to. When Lisa, who now is not a truck driver, but is a podcast host for a Smart Tech podcast, when she comes home on Wednesdays and closes the garage door, turns on the lights and starts her foot bath, that happens 9 Wednesdays in a row. But on the 10th Wednesday, she always has a dinner date with an old friend. And so she comes home on that 10th Wednesday and sees that the foot bath is on. And she's like, why did you do that? I did not want you to turn that on. The AI needs to be smart enough to figure out those trends, to go deeper with those trends and truly realize how someone is using their home, to contextualize everything, not just what it's able to contextualize right now. And I think when that happens, that's what will make it a possibility for all users. Even when it's the simplest that it can be, when I can I'm going into my app, I'm tapping a menu item at the bottom, and I'm hitting the plus sign to add a routine. You've already gone too far for so many users. I'm supposed to launch an app and create a routine, and then I have to choose a specific phrase I need to say, and then that's so far for most users. And this is not that's why I wanted to be clear about what I was saying earlier about Lisa, the truck driver, is like, I am not disparaging the person or thinking that they're ignorant or anything like that. The fact is, they have things to do, Jeff. They don't have the time that we have to learn what a routine means, to learn what the phrasing needs to be, to learn how to add new things. There's so much going on in their life outside of this that they don't have the time to pick up on all of that stuff as well. And so this stuff has to be as just in the background as possible. And that freaks those of us who have control over all this stuff out to a certain extent. But then we can go in and make adjustments to things as we need to. But it's not this situation where the average person wants to even have to say, yes, turn this on, yes, turn this on, and no, turn that off. This stuff just needs to be smart enough to be aware of us and what we do. So I think that's the big barrier to automation, because you can put out 1,000 guides on how to walk through all of these things, but the person needs to have time to go through those guides, the desire to go through those guides. And would they not rather be sitting with their feet in their foot bath, watching their favorite Netflix show, rather than spending the time that it takes to learn how to do this? There's plenty of educational stuff out there, but that's not enough.
I agree. And I think that's exactly right. Like, I think I was going to say that and just got distracted by the other stories too. It's the part where it listens to what or not listens, but it just like knows what you're doing and makes suggestions off of that. Needs to improve a lot. And it made me realize, because I went to Shortcuts does have an automation suggestions feature in the gallery. For me personally, I have 2,000 shortcuts, and so it does not make good automation suggestions because it just can't handle it. I think I have just too much stuff, so it just like can't process what I'm actually doing that regularly. But I think the home automation side absolutely needs that. It should know that I use my TV in a specific way every single night, and it almost never changes to like that stuff is a lot more predictable, I think, than like how you use your phone or something like that. So home automation suggestions would be really good, especially the artificial intelligence on top of that. I was thinking of focus modes, because in the almost exact same problem, you can have focus automations in shortcuts, but it's so specific that you want this intelligence that just turns on your focus modes for you and things like that. And that's something that Apple did add in a way that they hadn't before, of like contextual shifts with your device that both use your own signals plus location-based automation type stuff. So I'm curious to see if they could take that and improve that intelligence, and obviously on the other platforms as well in that way. The other side that I was thinking of is just recording what you're doing. Like, tell it, I want to create an automation, and then turn on all the lights, and then it just like saves that for you. Like the pre-setting it up thing, I think is one of the things that gets, you have to know what you want to do and then put it in step by step, versus if you just did it and then it saved all those steps and you could use it again. Like the hunch thing is pretty much that, but just a more like tell it to go into hunch mode and then set this up and monitor this next time would be nice. And then even in the simplest way, there needs to be user interface innovation. Apple's personal automations are just a single giant list, and it's just a bad experience. Like, there is ways to do software that makes it possible to develop multiple of these and not just be sitting there on your phone in like a tiny little screen. So I think that's like, there's Home for the Mac, but that's not really a solution for doing that kind of thing. It's basically an iPad app. And so just having the interface to be able to make automations would make it a lot more accessible. But I think otherwise it's just like, who does want to sit there and poke around and do it? So either the computer has to help us, or we have to help the computer, or just all of the whole experience needs to be a lot smoother.
Yep. All right. Any topics you want us to cover here, or any questions you have? I've got one more question that we'll save for right before the clips. But anything else that you want us to noodle on before we get there?
I mean, I think there's just so much breadth. Like, I hope people do check out the show notes and look at this topics link, especially as I get more of these stories in there, because you will be able to see the common trends that we did. Like, sleep tracking stuff seems like it's gotten a lot better and could get a lot better soon. I feel like we're just kind of in this stage where we're so set up for the next phase of smart home and smart tech, but because of the delays and COVID stuff, I think that both got people focused in on what's really important, which is really good. But it also just meant that stuff got a little pushed back, and the manufacturing and coordination across companies for these kind of things was a little bit slower. But I'm very excited just to see what happens in this space. And like, I definitely have to keep up with this on my own. Otherwise I am just going to miss it, because like a lot of those little features and all of those stories, like, I went through the news and found those things and picked what was important and what wasn't. And that stuff, like, I think there's a whole realm of outside of the big three of smart home that we didn't necessarily get into a ton of smart home hubs and just being able to do innovation with your own technology. I think even now that I just thought about it, the right to repair stuff maybe could be a signal turn in that direction of just personal smart home and being able to make your own gadgets. But that does sound like more niche too. Like, if somebody made it possible for you to make your own without having to solder stuff as much, maybe that could be another cool area too. And just seeing cheap, low cost, small, smart stuff. Like, I think all the little gadgets and toys are going to be a lot cooler in the future, because you can throw matter into it or whatever and things like that. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be some interesting innovation in terms of the hardware. But I can see why companies like Amazon got stalled. And especially when you said that they are trying to go from -$4 to +$2 in profit, that is such a like corporate mindset, and just so not based on like what people want in their lives. And so I think the innovation is not going to be coming from them. I think it's going to be coming from other areas, and just shifts like VR and things like that, or the metaverse, all that jazz. And I think gaming is really huge. Maybe I'm just playing lots of games lately also, but we've been talking about
it's not just you. It is absolutely huge. Yeah.
So there's a whole realm. It's like smart home, I think, started very much with light bulbs and smart speakers, but I think now it's blended into everything. And I think it all just needs to get tidied up and then lined up behind people's use cases more than the technology. I think that was a big thing the last couple of years, was like, we can do stuff with voice and put Amazon, trying really hard not to say it, although it is the last episode.
Exactly.
And everything and that kind of stuff. But I think going beyond that, I think it's just going to be a lot more like, I think that's what you were saying, is like with automation. I know personally, you'll get into automation when it makes you money, first of all, or when it saves you money. Like, those are the areas where people are like, yeah, why would I not do that? And so finding those specific cases in your life where you really need it, or it can make a big difference, maybe not just money, but even like your family and things like that too, can be
saves you time, saves you money. I mean, that's the place where I have spent the energy on automations, is with the show publishing stuff that I do, because it was enough of I have to do this over and over again, that it's worth it to me to spend that time. Whereas with my smart home stuff, in most ways, I do just want to control it, and I don't need to, sort of have it do it all on its own. So yeah.
I think I want to say for myself, I want to make my stuff more shareable too. Even though I do shortcuts in that realm, I think making YouTube videos about smart home stuff that makes this stuff really digestible is a thing that a lot of people do need. And there is a large, just the education in this space. So much has changed in the last few years. Before that, I think it was all changing so rapidly too that stuff became outdated, and just it's hard to make quality videos about this kind of material and in a way that somebody can take it and turn around and use it right away also, not just be like, whoa, that looks cool. Like, so that's going to be a personal goal for me. And I do think that that's something that the smart home ecosystem, no, I'm not saying, oh, I'll do this for you, but like the smart home ecosystem needs people to show them the way. And I think that's like what I've enjoyed doing so far, and laying the groundwork for other people to do it themselves too.
Yeah. I personally am very much looking forward to the next 3, 4 years, 5 years, as we do see Matter really take off. We've had conversations on the show about Matter. We'll continue to pay attention to that, because at the very basis, if you're watching this show, Matter is just a common language for all devices to be able to communicate. And that is not something that exists right now. So with that in place, all of the devices can talk to each other, and you start to have interoperability between these devices. So you're not working in a whole bunch of different separate apps and a whole bunch of different separate ecosystems. And that means that, like right now, my phone with the Home app on it and my Mac with the app on it can turn on and off the lights in my studio that light up my face. But I can't use the Google devices that I have behind me to do that. And I can't use the Amazon devices that I have to do that, because they don't have that integration unless I set it up a whole separate way. But there's a future in which anything that's around me can suddenly be there to help me control the stuff in my home. And that's a future where I would finally not feel exhausted to set those things up, because I don't have to do it over and over and over again. And I really like the idea of, like, I've got these different screens in my home that right now are only able to be used for certain things, but they could eventually be used in a way that like streams from anything. That's really cool. So that's the future I'm looking forward to. Before we get to our picks of the week, we'll get to our picks of the week in just a moment. But first, I do want to ask another question. All right. My last question for you, Matthew, and I will answer it after you do, is what do you feel, and you can name more than one if you want to, your favorite smart home products that you own, or they can also be ones that you covet. It doesn't have to necessarily be something that you own, but something you find delightful that is a smart home product, either that's been with you. It doesn't have to be anything new. Could be something that you've had for a long time. Kind of name your favorite smart home devices.
I think, at least going off of the new one, I think that Ember Mug has been pretty slick, and I've been enjoying that quite a lot. Just in terms of products that will give you repeated value and something that you use every day, I think that goes very far. And I think it is like one of the only like non-basic smart home things that I do where it's not just like light bulbs or things like that. It is just kind of like the fancy unnecessary thing, but it's like, heck yes, I'm living in the future with this. I mean, I think in the same way, I think something like a HomePod has been so embedded in my life that I don't even think about it anymore. Like I didn't even consider that when I first thought about this, but I think specifically, I'm going to say the microphones on these. And I'm not sure if it's just because I have the big HomePods too, but whilst I do know that Siri, it seems like more often recently, will give me some dumb, like, 3 of your devices aren't responding. I'm going to keep talking even though I just wanted a single command. That stuff drives me crazy, but I do know that it will always hear me. Like I can guarantee the day I got the HomePod, I could stand in my bedroom and say something if I shouted it, I'd have to shout from upstairs, but like across the house, and it could hear me and process it and get it right. So that was important. I think the reliability on the back end maybe has like fallen apart a bit, but I still do, just in terms of, I personally did not want Echoes or Google Homes because I knew that I would either have to get the bigger ones or it just like wouldn't fit the way that I wanted it. And I do think that the HomePod solved the Apple smart home realm extremely well. Probably too well for the price was their main issue with the big HomePods. And now the HomePod minis. I think in the same way, I don't think I'm ever concerned that a HomePod mini isn't going to hear me. So that's definitely something that I appreciate a lot. And then the last one, I think I was going to say the motion detector that I have in my office, because my lights have turned on and off every day for the last 3 to 4 years, and I've never thought about it once. And that's great. Like, I mean, I lied. I've definitely thought about it because I've messed it up a couple of times, and like sometimes it doesn't do it right. But just in terms of like actual daily convenience, that is something that, I mean, there's just many lights in here, and I have like light strips and everything. And so I can't imagine working in this space without having smart lighting, just because it, like, I can turn on in the same way. I have this huge light box right here for all my videos and stuff. All of that is smart. So anytime I need to film, I can just turn it on and off right away. And the that's why I wish it was presence detection in just that other level, and that it could tell my computer that I'm here too and turn on the computer. Wait a second.
What's the motion sensor that you have?
Just the Eve one. So I guess I thought it was the
Eve motion sensor.
Eve gave this to me. Yeah. So Eve definitely, I will give them credit too, because they sent me some of these products, and that has been really nice just to be able to test this stuff. Like the room, I have like a light back there. And so getting into that realm was nice too, because I think it's really easy just to get bulbs and kind of stop with it. But I think adding a little bit over time goes a long way. And I think that's one of the biggest things with the smart home is if you try to build a giant beast of a machine all at once, it is going to be a lot of work, and it's probably going to be really hard to set it up. But I think developing your smart home over time is the best strategy, and you can get really far as long as you just give it a little bit of effort every once in a while. And it would go a lot further if it did the effort for you and just told you, and then you're like, sure. So your point before it goes far too. But I think there is a lot to get out of it. But I think also not trying to bite it all off at once is a good strategy.
Agreed. All right. So for me, the first one that I wanted to mention is one of my favorite devices in my home. It's the Awair air quality monitor. They are impossible to come by right now due to a really interesting thing. So the Awair air quality monitor is awesome. It has a built-in little intake fan, so it'll actually pull the air into the device and sense it and determine what it, the volatile organic compounds, the CO2 level, the temperature, the humidity, all sorts of things. And it's this beautiful little wooden wooden rectangle with a white face that has this kind of pointillized LED screen on the front of it. And it's such a simple device that just works. It will give me alerts of my air quality when things are changing. I pay attention to it and make changes based on that. I have it connected to my HomeKit home via HomeBridge, and so then I can set up automations through that if I want to. I will mention that Amazon recently came out with an air quality sensor. It also has an intake fan. I recently got that and plugged it in and have been using it. It doesn't have all of the sensors that the Awair does, but it's pretty good for not having all of that. The reason why the Awair is hard to get right now is because it is one of a few air quality sensors that are part of this program where this this group is trying to do a bunch of research on air quality across the world, and they're actually paying people to donate, so it's not really a donation, I guess, to give their air quality data to this research project. So you can make like $10 a day for the period of time that you have it. So everybody kind of bought them up real quick because they wanted to be a part of this project and get paid for it. So the Awair is not available right now. I haven't done this project. You have to buy a license in order to participate. And so it's kind of, I don't know. It's not something I just didn't want to do it. But yeah, you buy this license, and then from that point on, they'll start paying you. And so then, once the license has been paid back, then of course that's just money that you make that could go towards the cost of the Awair in the first place. But that's because I think that also speaks to the accuracy of the Awair. That's why I wanted to mention that one. And it's one that I pay attention to regularly. The other one I wanted to mention was the Eve door and window sensor. It was my first kind of taste of what a thread connected device could be like. And so this thing is awesome because it always lets me know when the entryway door opens, and it lets me know immediately. It's not 5 seconds later. It's not 2 seconds later. It's not half a millisecond later. It is right when that happens. It's incredible how responsive that is. And so every time I see that notification, I get a little smile on my face because it works every time. So
has that remote gotten Thread yet?
Nope.
That Bluetooth remote? Yeah.
Yeah.
No way. From Belkin too?
Yeah.
Right?
From Belkin, can you believe?
Who could have imagined a large company would be slow to adopt HomeKit?
God
or a Thread,
bless America. Sorry. I know it's fine. It's just that still bothers me because they were they went as far as to be this, what is that called? A case study for the Thread group. And I'm like, how can you be a case study when you haven't launched this thing yet? You haven't proven that it works. You can't be a case study. Yeah. God bless it. Anyway, so I actually have, and I think I talked to you, I think it was with you. I don't recommend any Belkin products anymore, not because I'm salty about them not releasing this, but because I have had so much connectivity issues with Belkin products over the course of time that I just can't in good, Waymo products. I can't in good conscience recommend them.
We had our sound machine in our bedroom is connected to a Waymo. That is not a good product to have when you're trying to go to sleep and you're trying to get your smart assistant to turn on the thing, and then it can't hear it, and then you have to reset it, and then you have to manually go do it anyways. It's like, it somehow works again, which is fantastic, but for who knows how long. So,
yeah. Exactly. They work for a while and then they just stop working and no one knows why. And you're just frustrated about it and you don't know how to fix it. So yeah, I don't recommend those products anymore. And there was a third one that's now escaping me. Just to compliment your motion sensor, I am still to this day absolutely a champion of an evangelist for the Philips Hue Motion Sensor. I've found it to be one of the most accurate, most responsive motion sensors on the market. And it also, later on, they revealed that it had, I think it was a temperature sensor inside as well. And it had a light sensor too. So then that was, of course, part of its motion ability. But then you could also view and see those things. And I still feel there's no better motion sensor on the market. So that is the other one that I'll mention that to this day still remains one of my favorites. And then I will give an honorable mention because it's a smart home device, but it doesn't really add to your automations, but it's just a delightful thing. I have the Nanoleaf Canvas panels in my living room, and it's above the fireplace, so it's kind of like the centerpiece of the living room, so to speak. And it's just a fun thing to have. It looks pretty. We did like a winter theme. And, during other months, we'll do a fireplace theme. So it's like the fireplace is going, and then above it is this sort of cool moving fire in the canvas panels. And so, yeah, it's not anything that's going to do much, but it's just a delightful thing to have. So yeah, that's my other pick.
I'll say that's my like wish list thing is the Nanoleaf stuff, especially all of their lower cost stuff too. It all seems interesting.
The Elements items are they're also thread enabled, so you're going to be good for the future, which is awesome. All right, Matthew.
I had a couple more just because since I don't have another opportunity. I also want to echo the Eve door thing. That is another one that gave me a lot of peace of mind because I had a couple times where like our door kind of doesn't fully latch if you don't like kind of slam it shut. And so that is one of those things that just having that just meant that was never a problem again. And we always knew that it was closed and things like that. And then the other one that I forgot about was just Lifx. I really like their light strip. I haven't tried much of their other stuff, but I just didn't really realize how dim my Hue light bulbs were, which is they're perfectly fine for lamps. But I think for like an office space and getting where you need good lighting to like focus throughout the day, Lifx products are also really good. And they have just the really high quality color and the ability to change it and all that is a lot more advanced, I think, than other ones. So yeah, those are also all good products.
Looks like there's a sale right now on the Nanoleaf Canvas starter kit. It's usually $200. It's $150 right now for the 9 panel starter kit. So that's actually good for folks to know if they are looking at adding the canvas to their home. That's cool that you're able to use that to kind of keep track of your door. That's important. All right. All that's left is the pick of the week, our last picks of the week. So the picks of the show. No pressure.
I guess I would have picked something different if it was. I guess we just did the picks of the show, but
yeah, we did.
I think at least right now the newest thing that I've got to kind of just keep me on track going forward, and this is again smart setup tangential, is this poster that I have in the background, the focused calendar. There's another one for 2022. It's from the makers of the Focused podcast, but the calendar is a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday calendar. So it starts on Mondays. Nice zoom in. But it basically, it's in my mind, it's a work calendar because I don't think of the regular week in terms of Sunday to Saturday when I'm working. I think of it from Monday to Sunday a lot of times. And I mean, it's also like European standard. But basically it enables you to look at the year. It has the entire year just on one big poster board thing. It's dry erase, so you can write on it and then erase things. And then they added little features this year where there's like little bubbles. So if you want, you could kind of do not like time tracking, but like here's how far I am throughout the day and that kind of thing. And then even on the backside, a landscape mode, not mode, orientation, just so you could put it on the wall that way too. And so I use this to keep track of like my whole year ahead of me. One cool feature is it has subtle shading so that it's 8 weeks on and 1 week off, 8 weeks on and 1 week off, so that you actually take breaks throughout the year. You can kind of see it in here in the middle. There's a white strip throughout the center. So there's also just kind of that encouragement to focus in on work and then also take time for yourself. And so just kind of a cool little calendar. It's like $28 plus shipping. And I'm pretty sure it goes to both of the hosts. Max Sparky is the person who got me into the Apple space entirely through Mac Power Users. So I also love supporting him. But yeah, pretty cool calendar. What about you?
That's awesome. My last pick of the week is one that I think will be helpful for folks. As we're going into the new year, we're realizing that we're still working from home a lot. And, day in, day out, I use my podcasting setup because it's very easy to do. But one of the things that I've noticed about myself is that I move around a lot. Part of that is my ADHD, I know, but also I just have a lot of energy during a show and just tend to kind of fidget a little bit. And I've developed mic technique to, for the most part, still talking to even if I'm moving my head over here or over here, I'm still talking into the microphone. But there comes, whenever I'm not doing a show, when I'm not on, if I want to be able to move around even more because I don't necessarily need to be right in front of the camera, I found that a headset mic can be a really good thing for that. Thank you, Burke. Burke just said in the chat, a little bit. Yes, I move around a lot. So if you want to be able to move around and still be heard very well, and also be able to listen incredibly well, I wanted to mention these Beyerdynamic MMX 150 headphones. So these headphones, what's cool about them is that they are able to be used both as headphones with a microphone or without. They also have a special mode called augmented mode, which will actually let you, it kind of brings in the sounds from around you. So you can temporarily, even while you're wearing the headphones, you push the button and then it will let you hear what people are saying around you. Yeah, transparency mode, exactly. So these are the headphones themselves. And they come with a little notch on here so that you can control the volume, but this is also the button for the mode, so you can change the mode as you want to. You can see the little microphone holes. It's probably hard to see in this camera, but microphone holes at the top of these headphones. And then they have 2 places where you plug things in. Then you also have in the box the microphone itself. It has just a standard headphone jack on the end, which in this case is a microphone jack, but you plug that into the spot where the microphone jack is, and then you can, it's got a nice gooseneck that bends very well, so you can position the microphone just as you want it in front of your face, and it comes with 2 cables. There's one cable that lets you use the headphones kind of passively, so with my Mac's headphone jack on the side, then I can just plug that in and plug the other side into the headphones. But it also comes with a cable that is USB-C directly into the headphones, nice. And then USB-A on the other end into your computer. When you plug that in, it makes your headphones like an interface, meaning that it has, then on my Mac, I can choose to have the input and the output set to what I want it to. And it's important to know that in order to use augmented mode, you do need to have it plugged in because that also provides power to the headphones to be able to do that augmented mode. But Beyerdynamic, well known for their sound quality, these sound incredible. They're very comfortable, which is a big thing. These are gaming headphones, so you're going to be wearing them for a long time, and these are very comfortable. I love how versatile they are in terms of being able to unplug and replug so easily. So if you want the microphone, you can have it. If you don't want the microphone, you don't have to have it. And then that versatile plug-in mode too, where I don't have to necessarily run them as USB headphones, but I can also just run them as your standard headphones. And as Burke has pointed out, the fact that they have removable cables is really great because that means that if the cable is bad, I can get a new cable, no problem. And these cables are braided cables, so they've got that nice fabric outside on them, so they will last a lot longer and won't kind of fray and get hurt over time as easily. And as I said, Beyerdynamic, so the sound quality is going to be good, and these do sound great. They're available for $150, I think. Yeah, $149, $150. And I was all around impressed with these because I thought, they're marketed towards gamers. They are a lower cost headphone that I wasn't going to be very impressed with them. I thought that's what was going to be the case. They sounded overly bassy or something like that. And that wasn't the case at all. I plugged them in and I thought, I can hear clearly now. And I was, very impressed with them. So those are the MMX one. Does it have, I don't think so. Not on the headphones themselves, no. So that is the one thing. You'll have to use the kind of mute switches on your different devices to do that. But they've got really good studio class sound design, as they say. And this is made by Beyerdynamic, which is a German company, if I remember correctly. Nice. And they're probably offended by me saying that in such a horrible German accent. So thank you, Beyerdynamic, for making some pretty cool headphones and letting me talk about them here on the show. Matthew, it's time. Normally we would do the whole email us stt@twit.tv. We would say tune in every Thursday. We would say all of these different things, but this is the last episode despite that, twit.tv/STT can get you access to the backlog of episodes if you're curious to hear how the last 2 years of smart home stuff went. Matthew Cassinelli, if folks want to follow you forward, where do they go to do so?
All right, I've got to get the whole list this time. I think the biggest thing is you can always find my stuff at MatthewCassinelli.com, and then also on Twitter. I'm always active in tweeting there at Matt Cassinelli. I think my newsletter is probably the easiest way to stay up with the shortcut stuff that I'm doing. MatthewCassinelli.com/newsletter, and it's all through the review newsletter service. I think I just did the last 25 issues there. I do have a membership program where I make shortcuts, and I'm releasing a whole new aspect to that in the next year. And so if you want to sign up for that, MatthewCassinelli.com/membership. And it honestly really goes a long way for people to become members. If you enjoy the show and want to see this kind of stuff from me in the future, the membership program is absolutely the best way. Direct support works very well. And I think a big thing too is I just summarized about 50 different stories about the smart home that are going to continue into the future and are very related to shortcuts and the type of technology stuff that I'm interested in. And so I guarantee I will cover as many of these as I can get in, but a lot of this smart home stuff is going to be part of what I'm covering in the future too. I think that's always been what's sort of hard, is I've been in that shortcuts realm for my business, but then the smart home stuff hasn't fit in as well. And so I think I'm going to be incorporating a little bit of that just into some of the more stuff that I do naturally, because I'm doing smart home shortcuts and stuff all the time too. But yeah, otherwise, the big thing that I'm jumping back into is YouTube next year. So youtube.com/Matthew Cassinelli. And I want to show a lot of this smart home stuff that I've been basically becoming, like getting my masterclass in the last 2 years. And so I'm super excited to basically show a lot more of that stuff to people going forward as well. Yeah, I'd love to, if people want to just ask questions too, I think email is always good. I try not to give that out too much, but I don't just want to leave people behind. So if you ever do have questions, I'll try to make myself available at Matthew@CassinelliConsulting.com is the one that I kind of use for this kind of stuff. And I always like helping people with their shortcuts or kind of talking about technology stuff. And so that can always be an avenue too.
Tweeting at you works for me. Yeah. I say, I can't figure this out. I wonder if Matthew knows how it works. And then he usually helps.
There's a new Twitter communities feature that I just started and or that I got access to. And so it's a place where you can talk about, I made it for Siri shortcuts specifically. And so if people are interested in that, you can join it. And it's like posting questions in there, asking for help is actually incredibly helpful, even just because I can go back to it. Like stuff in your mentions just gets buried, but when it's in this channel, I've been like, oh yeah, I'll just help this person that I saw post this yesterday, versus it can get lost otherwise. So that actually is a really good spot. And I have a Discord as well that I've been trying to kick up so that people can, in the same way, ask more intimate questions and get help. And I'm going to be doing like shortcuts sharing sessions or like video calls and stuff in there too. So I'll make sure to get links to all this in the show notes so people can find it.
Excellent. You can find me at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network. Continue to watch TWiT, including the Tech Guy. As soon as that mask mandate lifts, I'll be back in on Saturdays with Leo Laporte, where we answer people's questions on the radio that shows broadcast all over the world. And then on Tuesdays, iOS Today with Rosemary Orchard, and Thursday mornings when I do Tech News Weekly with Jason Howell. You can also find me at chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. I want to take a second.
You should mention Clockwise, because I go on that show too.
Yeah, Clockwise. Clockwise is the 30-minute tech podcast that I do every Wednesday with Dan Morin. It's a great show for folks who don't have a whole lot of time and want to hear a whole lot of different things. It's 4 people, 4 tech topics, never longer than 30 minutes. And that's a lot of fun. to do. Now, I want to take a moment to thank Kevin King, who's been the longtime editor of this show and is often the technical director of this show. You would not get the final podcast if it were not for Kevin, because he puts in the hard work to make it a reality. I want to thank Burke, who has been the technical director on the show several times throughout the existence of it as well. Thank you for doing the switches, running the boards and all that jazz, and also being tech support in the times whenever we needed it to make sure that our cameras looked as they needed to. Anthony Nielsen, who I... Oh, okay. Absolutely. Once I'm done. Anthony Nielsen, who has occasionally stepped in as well, and I think may have been part of it in the very beginning of the show too. And if there's anyone that I forgot, then I thank you too. But I also just want to thank all of the people out there who have tuned into the show. CR1 in the IRC chat, thank you for your messages today. Very kind of you. Reverb Mike, thanks. You said, this was a great Thursday evening or Thursday afternoon show to watch. I'm glad that it was that for you. And so thank you to all of you who have tuned in over time to watch the show and helped us keep it going for as long as we did. And my last thanks goes to my buddy, Matthew Cassinelli, who agreed to do this show with me. I remember meeting up before the show launched at a coffee shop and having a conversation and figuring out what it was going to be. And then you came to the studio and we recorded the announcement of the show coming up and everything that we've done in between. I'm really appreciative to you for your work on this show and what you brought to the table. And yeah, I will miss chatting with you every week on the show. So now I just have to annoy you with messages about all sorts of smart tech stuff. All right, you can take it away.
Totally
now,
fine with me. I mean, I'm just going to start off saying thank you because, of course, that's been the best part by far. And I'm not going to lie, I'm gonna probably cry right now because you're an amazing person, Mikah, and I can't even do it just because you're such a nice person, and that has just made this show so much better. I didn't even know I'm more sad about not talking to you because you are just an amazing human, and that's just so
I wasn't
sad.
prepared for this.
Neither was I, apparently. I am, TWiT has been an amazing network for me. I needed this show at the time that we did this, and that was really good for me. Sorry. That part isn't as emotional. You are so awesome. But it's just been, I love talking with like-minded people. And here, let me get some water. I just need...
Yeah. Take your time.
Just doing this kind of stuff and being able to share what you're excited about goes a long way, especially with people who get it. And that's obviously what TWiT is. And so, it is hard to find people who like that kind of stuff. And so I just love being part of, I'm sad because I'm not going to, I will be back on the network, I'm sure, at some point just to do shows, but this is
I'm going to be bugging you for iOS today. You all will still get to see Matthew from time to time. Just not as regularly. It's been a lot of fun, and it's made it so easy too. I did a podcast before that. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate having someone do post-production and things like that. It's a lot of work, and just the network. I mean, I got to go to CES because I was part of this, and I never would have otherwise. I got to have dinner with Lisa and Leo. Sorry, my voice is just caught in this register, so I'm just going to power through it. I don't even care. And Ant and a couple of other people from the network. And so that was the last thing I did before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest shame is that the pandemic happened and that I couldn't come to the studio and do this show as literally part of the network in person, because that would have been, obviously I wasn't going to do it necessarily every week or something like that, but it's still just being able to be with you people would have
made a huge difference, I think.
Yeah.
But not that, I don't know. It's still, obviously, I've been appreciative of all this stuff. So I think it's been powerful. And I think looking back at these stories also did make me be like, oh yeah, this stuff is cool. Like, this is just so cool. It's all gotten so much better. It kills me that Shortcuts hasn't been as big as it could have been, but I think it still will be. And so I'm excited to see that. I love sharing. Like, one of the biggest disappointments that I have with the smart home is that I can't share it with more people, because it's like you get the coolest music setup you've ever wanted, and then it's like, cool, I have it now. Like, you want to have people over and like show it and share it with them. And so,
right. And sort of create, if there's one thing that we wish we could do, it's like make little elf versions of ourselves that could go into people's homes in a non-creepy way and set up their smart homes.
That's what these shows are. Yeah.
Right. This is sort of the elf. Yeah. That we can't get that far with it, but you do wish that you could, again, for Lisa with the foot bath, like Lisa the trucker with the foot bath, you want to be able to set that stuff up for her so she doesn't have to worry about it, but then she gets the benefit of it. Totally. And, that's kind of the passion about these shows and where that comes from. And I think with the audience that we have, I hope that everybody will continue to sort of follow along with you, Matthew. And as you said, I feel the same way too. We are always here. We can't answer every single question, but we'll try to continue to answer questions.
If you say I listened to Smart Tech today, when you ask me for help, you'll be at the top of the list. Like, instantly. There's the code. I'm not even kidding. Like jump. It just, I should make I don't think I'll have a special link or anything, but like, that's a pretty good way to just be like, by the way, I used to listen. It's like, I'm like, butter my bread and I'll do it right away.
Buttery smart bread. Well, Matthew, I think that means that it is time to speak to our virtual assistants for the last time. I'll let you go first.
Alexa, turn off the lights.
Hey, Siri.
Hey, Siri, what's the weather today?
Oh, no. All of my devices have triggered all at once. Hey, Siri, turn off all the lights. Oh, God, no, that's going to do it in the whole house. What have I done? I'm so sorry.
Hey, Google, what's the temperature in Portland? Sorry, everyone. We're just trying to ruin. If you're listening out loud, we have to end with a troll,
because if you've made it this far, I'm so impressed. You're one of us, and you're definitely chuckling along. All right,
Patrick,
everybody.
In the Discord has the good one. Hey, Siri, turn off the podcast.
There it is.
There's nothing playing.
Of course, there's nothing playing.
There's nothing playing. Fine, perfect. Siri, fine.
Have you ever read a tech news story and thought to yourself, man, I would love to talk to the person who wrote this to find out more information? Well, that's exactly what Mikah Sargent and I, Jason Howell, do each and every week on Tech News Weekly. We read the stories that matter to us, we reach out to the people making a break in the tech news, and we invite them on to tell their story. And you can find it at twit.tv. Look for Tech News Weekly every Thursday.